Good morning. I'd like to welcome you all to our worship service this morning. And I almost feel like I don't need to say anything. Betty kind of covered it all. I heard a story about a pastor who got up one Sunday morning and announced to his congregation, I have good news and I have bad news. The good news is we have enough money for our new building project. The bad news is it's still out there in your pockets. Our theme this morning is whole life stewardship. And the scripture that it's based on is from Matthew chapter 25, verses 14 to 30. As I read this, and I've read it many times before and heard it many times before, I don't know how in the world, but somehow I missed the fact that talents, it's the parable of the talents, that talents was money. I kept thinking talents was like music abilities, what we think of talents, music, artistic, whatever. Well, let me read it to you and you'll see why I was a little confused. Again, it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his property to them. To one, he gave 5 talents of money, to another 2 talents, and to another 1 talent, each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey. The man who had received the 5 talents went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 more. So also the one with 2 talents gained 2 more. But the man who had received the 1 talent went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. The man who had received the 5 talents brought the other 5. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 5 talents. See, I have gained 5 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. The man with the 2 talents also came. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 2 talents. See, I have gained 2 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. Then the man who had received the 1 talent came. Master, he said, I knew that you are a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown, and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid, and I went out and hid your talent in the ground. See, here is what belongs to you. His master replied, you wicked, lazy servant. So you knew that I harvest where I have not sown, and I gather where I've not gathered seed. Well, then, you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers, so that when I returned, I would have received it back with interest. Take the talent from him and give it to the one who has the 10 talents. For everyone who has will be given more, and he will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken from him. And throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. When I originally was thinking that a talent was a talent and not money, I thought, how can you bury a talent? And I thought, well, Jesus spoke with a lot of metaphors. And so burying your talent, if it in fact is an artistic, a musical, that kind of a talent, could be, you don't actually bury it, but it could be just not using it, not sharing it. I sometimes hesitate when I want to give an example because I don't want to leave people out or hurt anyone's feelings. But I am going to use a couple examples here. And I know that all of you I'm talking to have talents. But I think of Daniel Martins and his talent for playing the piano. Oh my goodness, if you haven't heard him, you're really missing out. And the fact that he shares that talent when we see him, we don't see him much anymore. But when we did, the sharing of that talent was just a blessing to us. And I think of Missy and her artistic ability. How many times we've had backdrops for services or just decoration things that she does that are a blessing to us because she shares. I think of Jack and his ukulele. And, we just love listening to him play that ukulele. I think of Joe and Connie and Ginger and Mike and, all the singers who are so talented. All those things that they have and share with us. Jesus was using the parable of the talents as an example of making wise decisions and taking risk. The two servants who invested the talents they were given took a risk that they might lose the money. But by taking a risk, they increased their talents. The servant who buried one talent did so out of fear. Hello, here's my talent that I can share, I guess. All right, guys. Sorry about that. Looking for grandma. The servant who buried the one talent did so after fear. He thought he was doing the right thing by not taking a risk. However, his master was not pleased, took the one talent away from him, and threw him out into the darkness. Jesus is telling us to make responsible choices and about being willing to take a risk to proclaim Jesus Christ and promote communities of joy, hope, love, and peace. It's about choosing to get involved in changing the world based on God's vision of peace. I don't usually think of myself as a perfectionist, but there are a lot of times that I don't do things if I don't think I can give it 100%. I think part of that goes back to my elementary school when I was always trying to get those perfect attendance awards. We didn't have kindergarten then. That's how old I am. But in the first grade, I missed some days of school because of measles and chickenpox. Second grade, I missed one day. My teacher saw some kind of little rash on me on a Thursday and thought I was getting measles or whatever and told me to stay home the next day. In third grade, I missed one day because my grandfather had passed away, so I stayed home for that. I never missed another day of school from fourth grade through 12th. Now, I've got a little side note I want to put in here. You can imagine how many days, I should have figured it out before I got on here today, how many days that would be. And you know how there's a thing going around, it should be going around all the time, be kind. Well, my mom, every single day, I rode the bus all 12 years of school. Every single day when I walked out that door, Mom's last comment to me was, be nice, be kind, be sweet. Every single day, be nice, be kind, be sweet. I think she was a little ahead of her time with that kindness thing. But to get back to that, all those days and years of perfect attendance, many of you know Doug and Connie Altman from Southern Ohio. Well, Doug's younger brother was in my class, Dale. And when we were at our high school graduation and several awards were being given out, I discovered that Dale had 12 years of perfect attendance. And it kind of made my what I thought was a great achievement. I thought, kind of tarnished that. I didn't think it was so great. I thought, well, but you know what? God doesn't ask for us to be the best. He asks for us to do our best. There isn't a single one of us in here and wherever that can be perfect. Not too many things. But that's okay. That doesn't mean we shouldn't try. Doesn't mean we to not do anything at all. That's why the master was so upset with that servant, because when he buried his talent, he didn't even take a risk to try to increase what he had. Several years ago, the women at Grove City did a Beth Moore Bible study. A lot of you will remember this, based on James. And one of the things Beth brought up at the beginning of the study was this: don't think for a moment that if you can't do all of it, you're better off doing none of it. A shorter time in Scripture is far better than none at all. Of course, she was talking about the homework and the Bible study. But that same attitude works for our stewardship and our generosity. Never think that your efforts are not enough. Every random act of kindness, every donation given, every bit of time spent with a child, every visit with a senior, any time you give of yourself, you open your hands and your heart to endless possibilities. Whole life stewardship. Stewardship means the management and care of all things: money, gifts, talents, resources, kindness, people, the earth, time, and so much more. There are so many things we have been given to take care of and to share here on earth. Like the lazy and fearful servant, we don't want to hide all the things we've been given. I'm reminded of the song, "This Little Light of Mine." I'm going to let it shine, not hide it under a bushel basket, and not let it be blown out. Whole life stewardship. It doesn't matter where you are in life, age, relationships, finances, health. Stewardship is really based on your attitude. I was going to use my parents for this next example, but I figured I'd embarrass Mom, so I changed tactics on that. So I'm going to use the gentleman that we farmed for many years. Gene passed away 2 years ago at the tender age of 99. Up until he was 97, he drove himself to church every day. Every Sunday, or maybe every day too, but every Sunday. He still attended weekly Boy Scout meetings. He helped wash the dishes for the church spaghetti dinner twice a year and bought tickets for our family and a lot of friends to attend. He drove his farm truck each year with the church members in the back to go Christmas caroling. He sang in the choir himself, and he volunteered a couple days a week at the local elementary to read to the students. He was always positive and interested in what you were doing. And if you went to visit, you would often find his Bible lying on the table next to his chair. My husband and I would sometimes sit on the front porch with him and look out over the fields of corn and soybeans. And his comment would always be, "This is God's country." My point is, you can serve and be generous at any age. Whole life stewardship. Caring for people. Most of you know that I taught school for 30 years. And one of my colleagues was a lady who was always positive, upbeat. She had one of those big belly laughs, you could hear her down the hall laughing about something. The kids loved her, She was just a great person. She and her husband were very involved in their church. They had 4 kids, just a wonderful lady. And on Friday mornings, the teachers would take turns buying donuts, and we would meet in the teacher's lounge about 15 minutes before school started, have our donut and just chat and, enjoy each other's company. One Friday morning, a couple years before I retired, one Friday morning, we were in the lounge, and my friend came in, sat down. She was extremely quiet, which is unusual for her. She's one of those chatty, I don't mean that in a negative way, but, she was always upbeat and involved in everything. And she was very quiet that morning. And she got up before it was time to leave and left. And normally I would never follow. I would never get involved, but something told me that morning, you need to go see what's up. So I got up and went down to her room, which was next door to mine, and her door was closed, which is another unusual thing. And again, normally with the door closed, I would just walk on by. But I thought, nope, you got to go in there. So I opened the door and closed it behind me and asked her, is there something the matter? Well, of course, she broke down crying and proceeded to tell me that she had discovered that her husband was having an affair. And to this day, I have no clue what I said. No clue. I mean, I talked to her. I couldn't begin to tell you one word that I said to her. But 2 years later, she was fine. 2 years later, when I retired, I got a letter from her. And, the usual, wishing me good luck in my retirement, how she enjoyed teaching me, all that. But also said she thanked me for her life. She had said that day she was thinking of going home and committing suicide. Now, I've been retired 16 years. She retired a couple years after me, and we're friends on Facebook. She and her husband are still married. They have, I think, about 10 grandkids. They're still involved in their church. So everything worked out. But my point is, sometimes I guess I took a risk that day. I took a risk, something that I would normally not have done. And there are so many times, I think, in our life that we don't realize just one little thing can make the biggest difference in somebody's life. Whole life stewardship. There are so many people in the world today that need to know they are loved and cared about. And I know with the virus situation, it's difficult to do some of the things we've done in the past. But there are still things that we can do to make a difference. And so many, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir because so many of you already do these things. I need to take note. Phone calls, cards, smiles, prayers, donations, and so much more. Be willing to take the risk. Don't hide your gifts and talents. Share them and watch them grow. I read a story about a counselor at a summer camp for 11 and 12-year-olds. And each night before the kids went to sleep, they would have a devotion time in their cabin. One night, the counselor asked her campers, "Where did you see Jesus today?" And one surprised and very excited camper cried out, "You mean he was here today?" Of course, Jesus was here, he is here, and he will always be here. I know you've heard me talk many times about how I walk my dog every day in the fields and the woods behind my house. It's my prayer time, my meditation time, and when I'm scheduled to plan a service or speak, it's a hope for inspiration time. But for several weeks now, this one thought kept going through my head as I was out walking. So I would like to close with this. That building on the Stringtown Road that we know and love is not the church. And for those of you that are here from other congregations, Pleasant Valley, Tarpon Springs, Lancaster, and maybe others, those buildings are not the church. Those buildings are where the church meets. We are the church. No matter where we are or what the time, we are the church. How many times do we read about Jesus being in a church building? Not too many. But wherever he was providing ministry. He was taking care of people, sharing, teaching, healing, listening, taking risk. Don't ever think that your efforts are not making a difference. We are never too young or too old to be a risk taker and a difference maker. Just like the song, we have to start right here and right now. Be the person God meant you to be and make a difference in someone's life. Take a risk. You don't have to be the best. You just have to do your best. Thank you.